Not all law students become lawyers. Now, as fascinating as that fact may be, there are a lot of concerns, especially with respect to making a choice which is not a direct result of a law school. One such choice is going for MBA. Now, there are a lot of questions around why one should really sit for MBA and what all opportunities can we actually explore with MBA. To answer all these concerns, ladies and gentlemen, on the One Take Show podcast is joining me Mr. Shaurya Joshi. Shaurya is a supply chain manager at Bira 91. He has finished his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and his BA LL.B honors from Dr. RMLNLU National Law University. In this episode, we will talk about the psyche that one goes through in order to take a decision for shifting from law to MBA, and also understand what does it really mean to be in a law school and how can we utilize this time to explore various opportunities across the fields. Now, please be aware that this episode does not talk about the preparation strategies. For that, I have already spoken to Utkarsh. I will link the episode down in the description. In this episode, we will purely talk about why should law students consider MBA as an option. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can notice in the stream bar, you can obviously skip to the part that you really want to watch first. But I would really suggest that you should go through the entire episode so to really understand why and how to take a decision like this. If you like this episode, make sure you like, share and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, write them down in the comment section. I would love to interact with you. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's jump right in. Hello, so welcome to the One Take Show. What a pleasure it is to host you on the podcast, because I believe every student, not just from Dr. RMLNLU National Law University, but everyone can really benefit from something that you have experienced and actually talk about. This conversation is going to help a lot of students across the board. Thank you so much for taking our time out of your really busy schedule, sitting down with me for this conversation, especially on a Sunday, and benefiting so many students at once.
Thank you so much for having me. It's quite a privilege actually for me to share the kind of gyan I've received over the past years and from my interaction with people, and I don't have an issue sharing it with others.
Lovely. I've always wanted to I could not have met you in person, Abhitak, because of the fact that you were the MCC convener the year I did not join. I joined the very next year. The college when you were the MCC convener, and I was always like, okay, I missed out on Shaurya sir. We used to talk about Shaurya sir being the MCC convener, but the entire idea that you cleared IIM, you cleared CAT, and the story that inspired a lot of students in our college as well, sort of to take up this entire career option, this career trajectory, and give them a new perspective is going to help a lot of students. But before we get into that, I think there is this an important section of this conversation that deals with your particular journey. What about your journey with RML, and particularly with your journey in respect to your engagement with activities or your experiences in law school? So what was your journey like?
So I think RML was a big culture shock for me, first of all, because I had lived in a kind of a privileged urban background mostly, and coming to RML itself was a bit of a shock. Just a little more background to that was that I gave CLAT really without any interest. I was interested in other things in life, and I was less interested in CLAT because I messed up my preferences. My CLAT rank was 394.
Okay.
And yeah, I could have gotten a higher rank college. So that was all. In my first year, I was mostly lost. That perhaps I could have gone there, something like that. But having said that, RML was a great learning experience for me, not just in terms of education per se, or in terms of subject knowledge, but I think the overall experience, because when we are at home, we stay in a very kind of privileged or kind of a very mirror, we have all the limitations that we stay at home. But once you go to college, that's when you really figure out yourself. And I think RML gave, and this is the answer with respect to RML. RML gives you one thing that most other colleges don't, that is time.
Absolutely.
To really figure out what you want to want to do in life. You can do whatever you want in those 5 years. Law school is a very long time. to do things. So, and RML gives you more than that. Like RML gives you so much time to do things. Like you can be the best version of yourself or the worst version. And
True.
that is something that's like a hallmark of any RML graduate. That they've really got the time to think and figure things out. So that way, RML was a great experience for me. I think I met some really interesting people over my course of 5 years, and that's something that I really cherish. Also, RML, if I compare it to IIM, RML gave me something that I really got at this time. IIM didn't give me time at all. So it was very contrasting experience of those 2 years versus vis-a-vis those 5 years. But I think overall law school was quite helpful for me. It gave me a lot of perspective in life, which I thought I was lacking when I went there. And yeah.
Right. And when it comes to like perhaps when we were previously having conversation before we started recording, you mentioned that there are certain things about law school particularly, because before we get into IIM experience, I would love to somehow unpack this experience at RML of yours. So we talk about this experience at RML and experience at law school. You mentioned that you were not always interested in perhaps taking CLAT, but once you entered the law school, did not that environment, they did not somehow try to influence you into being interested in legal field or the activities like mooting papers and stuff like that? Was that not sort of alluring in a way?
So that's what. So because I was not always interested in law when I went to law school, so I was always figuring things out. I am the first generation lawyer in my family, so I didn't know what is a good career for me.
Right.
So the one thing that I consistently did across the 4.5 years of law school when I was actually interested, when I was working in law school, was I did a lot of I would figure things out. Like from my first year itself, I started interning. So my second year internships were with litigation lawyers. I tried out litigation law, like right from Tisazari district courts to Supreme Court to High Court to tribunals. I did a lot of litigation internships. Then I tried in-house. I went for Times Bennett Coleman, that's Times of India, NTP, I tried in-house internships. Then I went for corporate internships with Amar Chand, Trilegal, AZB. So I did the traditional thing. I tried to figure, is there a career option for me in law? Because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I tried more of a elimination matrix when I would try and do things and then see whether they're good for me. Because when you go to law school, it was like, okay, if you really want to go to the grind, then litigation is good. If you want to work hard and earn a lot of money, then corporate is good. But I was like, I don't know if it's good for me, right? So therefore, I would ensure I try things out. Only when I tried them out and I figured out perhaps this is not good for me. I mean, one of my biggest reasons for switching to an MBA or going for an MBA was the fact that I felt perhaps the employment opportunities that I have offered post law school are not good enough, are not good for me. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people really like law and are very interested and very passionate about law. I was not one of them. Okay. So therefore, I had to look for opportunities outside law, and I could not enter those fields with a law degree. Like I could not enter marketing or sales or operations, whatever I'm doing right now, with a law degree. I had to have something else beyond that, and therefore an MBA was something that really added a lot of value for me personally. For people who are interested in law, and although we are shooting this answer later in the discussion, but I think for people who are interested in law, they should really figure out things what law offers.
Absolutely.
And not really look at things outside. One of the biggest reasons I had taken up law earlier was for me to give civils, because I thought law will be a great subject and I will have GS prep, which is something also I for 2 years I was seriously preparing for civils as well. I used to make notes on current affairs, I would study NCRT, and I had done all that. But then I got disillusioned with the whole exam and everything, which is a different story altogether. But I did try and figure some of my niche out in law school. Like in law school also, I did loads of internships. I did quite a few moods. I had 4-5 paper published. So I did a lot of things in law school as well. And
absolutely.
That made me figure out perhaps that this is not the best field for me, and thus I wanted to move outside law.
I mean, I think I can relate to this on so many levels. Firstly, because I am also someone who will be potentially a first generation lawyer. But apart from that, the fact that we are not really trained in a way to perhaps know everything about the profession, may it be litigation, in-house counsels, or corporate practice. We just know that corporate practice is about fancy salaries, and perhaps litigation is about having interesting matters every day somehow, if that makes any sense. But the idea is that, okay, these are the two fields. But when you describe it like that, perhaps what comes into my mind is that there are other fields to consider. And if in case you're in law school, it does not mean you have to end up as a lawyer or you have to end up as a
Absolutely.
litigator.
I mean, majority of engineers don't do engineering work, right?
True.
Most of them are working in finance or consulting or other PM roles, right? They're not doing what they studied in the engineering colleges. So why do you have to limit that to lawyers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the age of 18 or 19, I don't know what I want to do at the age of 60, right? So how can I fix my career that, I mean, I don't, at the age of 18, I don't know what I'll want to do tomorrow. How can I know what I'll want to do 40 years later? So at that age, most of us are just figuring things out. So with law school also, you should first figure out with law, like, is there something that law offers? Like a couple of my seniors who moved into journalism, like they like law, but they like writing more, and they now are pretty established journalists. So it is not necessary that if you've gone to law school, you should just be either working in a law firm or doing litigation. I know a couple of people who went to law school and are now doing policy consulting. Which I feel a very, very interesting field. So you should really try and figure things out. And first of all, be aware of what is happening around you. Just talk to more people. Just talk to different kinds of people. And therefore just get an understanding. Because if, like, I don't even herd mentality. I mean, if someone's doing something, I don't know if that's going to be good enough for me or not. So I should first experience it and then decide whether it's good for me.
True. Absolutely.
So, and also when I gave CLAT, I don't think there was, like, it was still in the early stages of CLAT. So there was not so much awareness about law as a career also. I think which is that over the past 8 years since I've given CLAT, I think it's really grown. A lot of people more like now know about CLAT. I think CLAT is a lot more competitive exam now. Like, we were the last batch to not have negative marking, which is this reason I was very lucky, because if there was negative marking for us, I would not even got through. So yeah, I mean, some things worked in my favor, which really helped me figure things out along the way.
Okay, so let me ask you this, like, especially for my audience who is perhaps already in law school, and now after listening to this conversation, they would perhaps start contemplating about their possible career choices, which are different than legal field. For them, is there any utility to legal education? Because we listen to this one phrase that knowledge acquired never goes waste. So is your experience at law school, were there any set of skills or essential attributes that you might have acquired which have really helped you despite of the fact that you did not stick with legal field and decided to move away a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think law school teaches one skill which I don't think is taught enough in colleges in India, that is communication. So, and to be precise, structured communication. So, like, let's say when we are reading a case or when we're doing a case analysis in our subjects, we will try and see how the judges build the argument, how the lawyers are very structured the points, how each judgment is adding value, which is something mooting really helps when an orator presents his speech, the structure that they have. That structure in arguments is not something that is common across a lot of people, at least in the country. And it's not really a skill that is taught. It's a skill a lot of people acquire. But in law school, I feel it is taught. We are taught to write answers like this. We are taught to present our arguments in this format. And that really helps. Yeah, the subject knowledge that we acquire in law school may not help you in your day-to-day life. But that is true for every lawyer who graduates as well. I mean, how many lawyers who graduate from law school really use the law that they learned in law school, right? So the job and college are two different aspects. I mean, the knowledge acquired during both is different. I mean, in a law firm, let's say you may use some aspects of company law, but most of the company law knowledge that you're going to use is transactional knowledge, which is not something law school can teach you. Therefore, we should not, like, I feel we should not be wedded to the concept that, because I've done law school, I should only be using law, like looking at law as a career option, and I'm going to be limited to that. No, you're not. No one really cares about what you've done as a degree, as long as you are willing to work hard and are willing to acquire new skills. So that way, I think it's just a wrong it's a misconception that we have in India, I think, per se, that because we do certain skill that, I think the bigger aspect of law school, like, why is law school 5 years? Why do we have a BA LL.B honors course which is 5 years rather than a traditional 3-year LL.B course?
Yeah.
It was because law cannot be taught, right? It's something that you have to learn on your own. And over time, over the course of 5 years, once you study different things, you try and figure out, okay, these are areas of interest that I have, or these are areas I don't have. But that is not so much limited to the kind of subject knowledge that you acquire. It's more of the skills that you acquire. And I'm sure if you interview or if you talk to people who are working in law firms or in litigation offices, what one skill that they are really grateful for law school would be to read cases or to search on SSC and Manupatra. No one really remembers, because no one remembers the law that they've learned law school. I mean, it's not really that helpful.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, and I think we all are aware of the kind of quality of legal education in India, per se. So, if you have to learn on your own, then you can learn. Why you can only learn law? You can learn so many other things on your own.
True. All I would say at this point is that the quality of Indian education just went really belly up in this time of virtual communication and virtual classes. Yeah. But I do agree with you. There are two points here. Firstly, I think every legal professional that I've spoken to through this medium on my podcast have always pointed out that law school has taught them how to read law, not exactly how to learn law. So now they know how to read and look for law.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a sort of a set of skill that you really acquire. But as you have mentioned here, that it does not mean that you still have to stick with law. One fine guest on this podcast very accurately, I think, mentioned that there is some sort of an investment bias, that once students spend 5 years in a particular course, they just feel that it's an obligation sort of thing, that they have to stick with this course and somehow try their hand at law. Do you think is that one of the reasons why people can't somehow decide to move away with it?
So there's one concept that I've learned. Actually, it's a very common concept called sunk cost.
Okay.
I mean, it's like supposing you buy a mobile phone which you think is good at that point, but then you can't use it and you're not comfortable with it. Do you still continue using that mobile phone, or do you put it aside and perhaps move on to a different device? It's the same thing in any form of life, right? I mean, I think it's very important to understand at 17, 18, very few people in life know what they want to do. I still don't know what I want to do in my life.
Okay. Wow. Okay. No, because I'm really sorry. I do. That was not at all sort of. I personally always felt that I do not have any idea as to what I'm really trying to do. But it's good to see that my seniors are still trying to figure it out. So I might have a little bit of time.
I think everyone, and I think you should. Like, there are very few people in life who know at that age of at 17, 18, and everyone not Sachin Tendulkar to start playing for India and know that, okay, I want to score. He's my runner. I want to be in the Indian team, right? So we all are trying to figure things out across our journey, and I think that's why the journey is very important for us to really go through, for us to learn at different stages. And therefore, why I shouldn't be wedded? Like I'm saying again that, because I'm not going to discourage people from entering law. I think law is a brilliant profession. I know a lot of people who are doing really good in that profession. And I'll give you a perspective. My batchmates who went to law firms are perhaps earning almost comparable or more than me what I'm earning right now, without having spent so much money for education. But yeah, there are benefits also to it, and there are the pros and cons to everything, right? So
absolutely,
it is not mandatory that you have to, or whatever you study in life, right? Supposing there's a history honor student, it doesn't mean that person has to really go and pursue history only. They can pursue whatever they want after that. I mean, LL.B. In India, LL.B. is a secondary degree. It is not a primary degree.
Correct.
Because people, they want you to study something and then come for law and perhaps figure out things on the way.
True.
I don't know why we perhaps feel that. Although I would say one reason for that is because I think when I was there in law school, or when I joined law school, our fees was much lesser than what it is now. I think the fees has really gone high. Yeah. So a lot of people are like, no, I have to first recover that money and then look for options. Yeah, that could be perhaps financial constraints could be a reason why people don't explore other opportunities. But if financial constraints are not an issue and you are not happy with what you're doing, then you should always look for other options.
Okay, perfect. I think finding answers with respect to these ground rules as you just laid them down is perhaps easiest or more effective to come to a solution, to a conclusion that might actually help our career trajectory. This brings me
it's
to...
like if you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like
Please,
something
please.
I say a lot of times, like if you, like, there are kind of people who know what they want to do, and if you're not one of them, then you have to just do it, and then you will know it's good for you now.
Perfect. Right.
So yeah, I mean,
as I was saying that this is exactly what brings me to my next question, which is that as you have identified that there are certain attributes and skills in law school that really help law students, or perhaps any professional in any field whatsoever, there must be certain aspects of, let's say, law school that you might have experienced were useless in a way that did not really contribute much, or something that you might or could have avoided. To have a little perspective from someone who's a senior and who has also experienced a similar law school experience that I am going to experience in next 2 years, what else is there that I should look out for in order to avoid?
So it's something I would always say about my law school experience, that I've made a lot of mistakes in law school. And the best part being, I made a lot of different mistakes in law school. So that really helped me along the way. But one mistake I made, not just in law school, but in IIM also, which I just recently realized and I'm working towards, is not focusing on my health. I think no college in India focuses enough on the concept of physical or mental health. I think that's something that really we need to understand early and just work towards. And like anyone who has met me in RML or in IIM would know that I was the least concerned about my health. I was extremely fat, and that was very, very unhealthy and also dangerous. So a message I would really give to people who are in law school or in any college first year listening is, please focus on your health. It's very important. Money is secondary. If your health is bad, you won't be able to enjoy the money. So first is just focus on the health. Second, continuing with that, I thought I lacked the discipline when I was in law school. Because in RML, there's so much time to do things. You try and put your hand in everything. Like I actually try and put my hand in everything. Like I was very seriously involved in Mutual committee, but I would try and help some other committee with some other event management, or would just be doing something or the other. I was always outside the room doing something or the other. So because I was not doing one thing properly, perhaps I can get the best experience out of it. So you have to be like, I feel that discipline something is really lacking in law school, and just I would never have a structure like when I was working. Thirdly, I think so one mistake I made in law school was not have plan Bs. I would always have a plan A and only just work on those plannings. Like let's say if I'm focusing on a certain mood, then I would be like, okay, yeah, what if I don't get through, then what? And I don't have another option. Or like something, a mistake I made a lot when I started writing papers was that I would write papers for specific journals. Now, if that journal, now let's say if it's an international investment arbitration journal, now if my paper doesn't get selected, and a journal selection procedure takes about 6 to 8 months, right? So if my paper doesn't get selected, then the paper's A, outdated, and B, then I have to start writing paper again. So I was not smart in choosing those battles. Like rather it would be better to write on like let's say first identify 10 different journals. Okay, there's a similar topic. Why not write on this? Then we can apply in different places and let's see if I get through. So having a plan B is very important. Like not don't put your eggs all in one basket, which is a mistake I did a lot in law school. So yeah, I mean these mistakes, I think a lot of people make these kind of mistakes. Yeah, so just working to identify that perhaps we can how can we reduce our risk? Like even when I was preparing for an MBA, I didn't have a plan B. I was like, no, I don't want to pursue law, and if I don't get a decent college after this, I don't know, perhaps I would have thought of giving CAT again. So that is very important that you have a plan B at every stage.
I think I am rather surprised because when you mention about your submitting papers and submitting written work to certain journals, that hits me because I have made a very similar mistake writing for one particular journal, that journal taking let's say 5-6 months, and then rejecting your paper for valid reasons, invalid reasons, and now you can't do much about that paper. It's not contemporary anymore. That topic is not relevant anymore.
Yeah, I have so many papers like this in my I wrote in my 4th year which are like redundant. Yeah, like I could not use them anywhere, right?
Fair.
So one thing I had noticed a lot of people would do actually they would identify like what are the subject that they've taken this year, and then they would write papers which perhaps they can use as project submissions also.
Yeah, that's smart.
Which is something a lot of people in law school don't take seriously. It is actually a great learning opportunity. Like projects are a brilliant learning opportunity, which I thought I missed out in law school.
I mean, the other part that you talk about is not having a plan B. I can also sort of relate to that because obviously coming from a background where I have humanities in my +2, and I think you would also agree since you also were preparing for civils. To prepare for examinations like civils judiciary, you have to put on hold all the other options such as finding PPOs, jobs, or finding a senior to work with and stuff like that. And in your case, it was preparation for CAT, which I'm coming to in just about 10-15 seconds. I'm really sorry to all my listeners, but it's okay. I'll put in the time lapses. The idea here is that when we prepare for such examinations, we necessarily put off every such form of backup plan that we have.
Sure.
Like, would you confirm that that is dangerous? Like, especially when it comes to examinations like judiciary and UPSC, should we have a backup plan? For example, a job opportunity.
So, this is a conversation I've had with a lot of people. I don't think you can club, first of all, UPSC and judiciary together.
Yeah.
Because UPSC happens every year. Judiciary does not happen every year.
Yes.
That risk, and that is an immense risk, which I think a lot of people understand only after they get into the system.
True.
So, like exams like UPSC, CAT are annual exams. They will happen whatsoever happens. They are bound to happen every year.
So like one year not, then next year you can obviously take it again. But unlike
so you have multiple attempt options. Unlike judiciary, which happens once in 1.5 2 years, and a court decision comes, and then all the exams get stuck for multiple years. So these are high risk exams. Now, I'm not saying that you should, if you're preparing for some exam, you should always should not be going all in. But then you should always have a limit. Like, let's say in my 12th, I was preparing for engineering at that time. I had a limit that if I get a rank lower than this, then I will not look at engineering as a career option at all. And those are the kind of limits I'd set for myself, that if I let's say for CAT, if I get a percentile less than this, then I will not look at, if I'd gotten a low percentile, I would not have scored CAT again in my life. So the same way for judiciary or some exams, you should have the kind of limit for yourself, or for any such exam, that okay, if after 3-4 times I'm not clearing a certain stage, then perhaps I should just give this up and move to other things in life, which are also very interesting.
True.
So, this backup, like you should always have like a walk away option in your life. Like, can I walk away from this? I would be too attached to it.
Agree.
So, like, let's say if I did not become a committee convener, if I do not get a paper, I should be okay with it. At that time, it's a very emotional decision. Like, okay, I want this in life and everything. But later, for us to realize that no, you should be okay walking away from things as well. And if you don't get them, like, you should work very hard for them. But if you don't get them, it's fine. If I didn't got to CAT, I perhaps would look at other career options.
True.
Which I don't know what, but
that's okay. We need that for career counselors. But I think your idea of having sort of a versatility in your approach in career is extremely important. And I am taking a lot from this conversation, sort of making my own mental notes. Obviously, I will be visiting this conversation again to somehow conceptualize my approach towards my career trajectory. Also will be helping a lot of law students. But coming to a rather straightforward point here, which has been requested by so many of my listeners, especially my own batchmates or my friends from other law schools who have approached me and asked me, Kaustubh, please do a session about opportunities in MBA or opportunities with any other such course after law school. And I thought, well, who else to approach but you?
Sure.
So a very generic sort of a question so that you can conceptualize it for our listeners. How lucrative, how successful, or how fulfilling of an opportunity is MBA after law?
Okay. If you start first monetarily, which a lot of people are very concerned about, I would say not a lot.
Okay.
It's not. You an MBA in India, if you do from IIM, will cost you 25 lakhs, which is something you can earn. If you go to a decent law firm, you'll be earning a lot more than that. So money-wise, perhaps not a lot. which is very straightforward. But for people like me who were looking at perhaps a job fulfillment level, that perhaps what I'm doing is that interesting work. And again, I'm focusing on myself here because I know people who like law and who like working in law firms. And I perhaps can relate to that, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong or it's right. I mean, it's really an individual choice. So for people like me who were not very interested in law firms, MBA is actually a great opportunity for me to explore different things. Like currently, I'm working at Bira 91, which is a beer company. Right? And I work in the supply chain team where I'm handling international operations. So that's not something I can do after law school, right? And I think I'm doing very interesting work. I'm bringing a lot of revenue to the company. So that, for me, like I would rather be doing this than be working, let's say, in a law firm on a transaction. So therefore, MBA was the enabler to me, I would say, that I can get these kind of opportunities. Also, MBA in India is kind of a societal validation more than anything else.
Okay.
I mean, because, and I'm sure a lot of people from lower rank colleges would have experienced this kind of class structure, for the lack of a better term, in law firms, wherein some law firms don't pay stipends to people from lower rank colleges, or some law firms don't give enough offers or internships to people from lower rank colleges.
Yes. Agreed.
So, MBA, now again, when I talk about MBA, it's two different things. MBA from IIM ABC is different from MBA from a lower rank college.
True.
So if you are, let's say, already from an NLU or from a top law college and are considering MBA as an option, you should only go if you get a top rank or an older IIM. That's when MBA can actually add value to your career. If you go to a low rank, like a tier 3, tier 4 MBA college, just for the fact that you want to get out of law, then perhaps MBA may not really be that helpful for you. You should perhaps look at other exams or other opportunities. So it's very important for us to understand that IMA gave me the kind of... So MBA is nothing. MBA is not... You don't learn anything much in MBA except you get a thappa. He's employable. Without teaching anything in MBA.
Fair.
But to get... At least I can now get entry into a lot of rooms which I would not have got earlier, right? That thappa gets me entry. Which is a thappa I didn't have in RML. I mean, RML is an NLU, right? But you know how law colleges work, right? And it has happened so many times in law firms when I was interning, where an associate would call, they would ask for an associate, and I would go and I was like, I'm free, I can do work for you. They'd be like, okay, what college are you from? I would say RML. They're like, okay, we'll talk to you later. And then they'll call up and take some other from NEJS or NALSA, which I felt was extremely insulting for me. I'm like, I might be working as hard in them. I may not know enough law as them, but I'm not being considered because of my college name. That is wrong. So, therefore, I wanted to work to getting that a brand associated with me, which mattered for me. It may not matter to people in other, but it did matter to me a lot.
Okay.
And therefore, MBA gave me a kind of validation to really do the things now. Like I can now enter any company office and at least ask for an interview now, and they might consider me for at least an interview, not for a job. At least they will listen to what I'm going to say.
I think that somehow really explains a lot of questions as far as why should we think about MBA after law school. I think there are two things I would like to highlight here for reiteration. One is that you mentioned how law schools in sort of an hierarchy experience this different sort of opportunities available to them, which is extremely true. RML experiences it as against law schools like NLS. There are other law schools which are perhaps even worse in a condition as against RML. But the most important point that I take away from this segment of the conversation is to not do MBA just for the sake of doing MBA. Do MBA after law school if you get into a good college which adds value to your
and I would really suggest you should only look at MBA after, like, one of the biggest mistakes I made perhaps when I looked at my MBA was go as a fresher. MBA is a postgraduate program which adds a lot of value to your career if you have work experience.
Okay.
And again, I don't think a lot of your listeners would know this, but so in IIMs, we have three kinds of, at least ABC, we have three placement opportunities. One is a summer placement, which is for your internships. Second is lateral placement, and third is final placement. Now, lateral placement is where the companies come which pay the most.
Okay.
To be eligible for lateral placements, you need at least 18 to 20 months of work experience. Else, you're not eligible to sit in those.
Okay. Wow.
So, if you're really spending so much money to go for MBA, you also want a good high-paying job, right? So the best way to ensure you get a better paying job is to be eligible for laterals and therefore get 18 to 20 months of experience before you really go in. Like, so in law school, I had done about 14 to 15 internships. So that's almost 14 to 15 months of I had worked. Like every vacation, I would never go home. I would just be interning. So I already knew what law was giving me. And therefore, I was like, no, I don't want this at all. Like, I don't think that adds enough value. Actually, a senior had said this to me, wherein he had said that, let's say, and I'll talk about this in terms of law. Let's say you want to become a partner at Amachan or wherever in a top law firm. So this 8 to 10 years that you do is just a journey for you, because your ultimate goal is a partner. Or let's say you want to become as an in-house, let's say you want to become VP of legal at an in-house place, or let's say you want to become independent, so 6 to 7 years of litigation. So once you know that what you want to do as this is a position I want to go to, the journey to reach that position is just incidental for you. You will go to whatever extent to get through that journey. But let's say you are joining a law firm and you don't want to become a partner.
Right.
Then why are you joining? I mean, then
makes sense.
Perhaps money is the reason. But as a 20, is money should money be a driving factor to influence your decision making? Is a different conversation altogether. I'm just saying that with that kind of clarity, that I was very sure that. So this is a conversation I had with my father before I thought of switching. That he asked me, "What do you want to do in life?" I said, "I want to work for a couple of years in law firms." And he said, in the fourth year, I had this conversation with him before I even thought of MBA as an option. I said, "I want to work for a couple of years, then perhaps give my GMAT and explore other opportunities." Let's say.
Okay.
He's like, if you after 3-4 years, if you want to do this, then why are you getting into it in the first place?
Makes sense.
At that point in time, I didn't know about lateral placements and the value of an MBA, but this is just a precursor conversation before MBA I had. And I was like, yeah, I mean, perhaps I'm looking at this wrong. If I don't want something, why should I get into the whole rat race for it?
True. I think that somehow sums it all up. I just have two very quick questions before we somehow wrap this conversation up. And they are sort of the most direct questions that I can have. Number one is there some sort of maneuverability available for students who move into MBA and perhaps can switch back into legal sphere, or is there sort of an amalgamation that is available for work field that we can look forward to? Or is there any maneuverability available for students?
I think there's no limitation per se. No one's stopping you. But I don't think we would want. So let's say if as a fresher I go for an MBA and I then want to join a law firm after that. So I will be joining a law firm as a fresher. Okay. But the money that a law firm will offer to a fresher will be much lower than my batch average. So why would I perhaps won't even take it? Fair. So
in that sense.
And this problem amplifies a lot more if you go for a foreign MBA, which is super expensive. True. At least one of the main reasons why I chose in Indian MBA was that even if I'm making a mistake, I didn't know if I'm doing the right decision. At that point, I just thought, like just doing things, yaar, kuch karna hai, and the elimination matrix for us, I'll try and see if an MBA and it doesn't work out, look at something else in career option. So Indian MBA was much cheaper than a foreign MBA. And I could do an MBA in 25 lakhs, a foreign MBA will cost 1.5 crores. So at least I was like, at least वो गलती कर रहा हूँ तो at least सस्ती गलती करो कि बहुत ज़्यादा impact ना पड़े. But on a serious note, at least like I'm not sure of so many cases of people who have wanted to switch back to law firms. But if people who like a law firm structure, consulting is a great career option. I mean, a lot of the top consultancies that are McKinsey, Bain, BCG were modeled on law firms only. So the working style is very similar. Org structure is very similar. So consultancy becomes a great career opportunity for those people who like law firm life and want to go into that. But direct entry into law firms, I don't know. I don't think anyone will stop you. But I'm not so sure how much value it adds to go back to a law firm. Like if you really want to be doing well in a law firm, then just stick with a law firm and then perhaps do an LLM. lesser time investment. 1 year course also.
Right. I think that answers this question. And my last question to you here is that while you were in law school, with respect to preparation strategies, how could you manage this law school life with preparation? I won't necessarily get deep into your preparation and study pattern and strategies, because I think that has been enough talked about. I mean, you have talked about it quite very much, and there are ample amount of resources with respect to preparation for CAT. But with respect to a law student's perspective, how could you manage your time and prioritize and strategize in a way?
So I had decided in the January of my 4th year. So I gave CAT in 2016 December. In 2016 January is when I decided I'm going, and I graduated in 2017, just for some context. So I decided that I'll give CAT. But I was also doing I was doing an international meet. So I joined the coaching. I took a coaching. I joined a coaching, but I didn't do it seriously for 3-4 months because I was busy with the mooting, MCC work, or with my moots. So it got on the back burner. However, law school offers, again, I was saying that law school has a great concept, that's time. So the 3-month vacation that people get to intern, I utilized for preparing. So I finished my whole course. I started doing mocks. So CAT is not really an exam of subject knowledge. It's just time management. True. So the more mocks you give, the more exam practices you do, that's how you get better at it. So in 3 months when I finished the course and everything, after that it was just a weekend. Every weekend we would go and we would do mocks at a center, so that I get a center feel also. I know how to time myself, and that's how almost every weekend without fail. If I'm not going for exam, I would give one exam. Sitting in the library. But one mock I would try and do every week. But once college opened, I had a lot of other work also with MCC or just college work in general. So the time investment went down, but I had deprioritized everything else. So that actually brings me one of the biggest thing, that filter. When I realized that after 4th year that I don't want to pursue law, so everything else was then, which I was doing in law per se, like subject-wise, was just a wastage of my time, right? So I would try and filter things out, like, is this necessary for me to do? If not, if let's say if there's a reading which I should go to class and do, and I would like, is this necessary for me? Is this going to add value to my MBA prep or not? If not, then I don't think I need to do it. So that filter was very important, which I got in my 5th year. Obviously, committee work was something which was a big priority for me for the longest time. And but the rest, it was just give exams regularly, just give exams. If you want to do something, you'll figure it out how to do it.
Perfect. Right.
I mean, if you don't figure it out how to do it, then perhaps you don't want to do it. That's how bluntly I look at it.
I mean, it's quite obvious, because preparation for CAT is something that is quite available. The resources are available, coachings are available. You have a lot of resources. All you have to do is just make up your mind and start preparing for the same. And perhaps we can learn about managing your law school life with CAT from your experience. And I think this entire conversation will do 2 major things, and I can point them out for everyone. Is number 1, give them a perspective about how and why to approach law school with a certain form of open-mindedness, so as to have your areas open, your opportunities open in different fields. And second is, obviously, people who are interested in having MBA as a career trajectory should always think about these things, have a clear mind. Because I personally have really started thinking about what exactly is it that I really want to enjoy doing, and perhaps I need to start thinking about that. So this entire conversation really adds so much value to everyone who tunes into this podcast. Thank you so much for taking time of your really busy schedule, sitting down with me. Do you have any closing remarks for our listeners?
I mean, nothing. I thought just that I would really encourage people to just get out of their room. I felt a lot of people in law school just didn't get out, just were always limited to what they were doing. So just get out of the room and do things. I mean, one of the biggest value add I got from law school was to MBA committee. And that was one of the biggest. Mooting is one of the biggest position of responsibility in a law school, MCC convener. And I thought I learned so much about group team management or whatever, and just about how to handle people that through a motor committee, which helped me a lot even in MBA. So I would just say, but I didn't do all that with the objective of thinking that perhaps it'll help me in life. But because I got it, I met a lot of different people. I learned from the experiences. Therefore, perhaps I had perhaps an edge when I was applying for MBA. So that a lot of people ask me when they're in the first year, or they text me on LinkedIn or something like that, in the first year, should we start preparing for CAT? I said no. In your first year, don't prepare for CAT. Just do things what you just first figure out, is law good enough for you? If it's not, if you're not interested in law, then in your fourth year. But in the meanwhile, do as much as you can. Like, go and intern. Just madly go and intern. Madly just go and work with committees, do moods, and always have a plan ahead. Like, how do you plan ahead for yourself? Like, how do you want to leave an impact also? I mean, it's very important for you to leave an impact in your college. So, therefore, just go out of your room, do things, and get out of your comfort zone. I mean, that's something that perhaps I would really encourage a lot of more people in law schools, because it's 5 years. People really get very lazy, I would say, at the end of it. Chalo, niklo out. But that's not how. I mean, it's 5 years of your life. I mean, if you live for 60, so almost 1/12 of your life, it's just gone in law school. It's a very, very big, it's a very big time investment. And I would really encourage people to just utilize it in some form or whatever, just positively, not negatively, but just use it for something. I mean, just try and figure their niche. So yeah, that's the only thing I would really encourage people, and not limited to law, in general, whatever they're doing, in whatever college that they are, whatever stream that they're pursuing, just go out and do things.
Wonderful. I think that sums it up. The idea of being more enterprising, having that mindset, going out, experimenting more. If in case you're in law school, not sure about law, but at least we should exploit every opportunity that we are given in law school, so that we are sure about the fact that we are we need to explore more with other opportunities. I think this is the conversation that was indispensably required on the One Take Show, the kind of conversation that will really add value to every listener. And I had a wonderful time chatting with you. I hope you had a good time too.
Sure, it was a great time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.